During this past week of what we've been covering between what Donald Trump intends to do in Ukraine, the right wingers in particular have been put into a bit of a tizzy because on the left, obviously, we've got people who are like very supportive of Ukraine, and then you've got the tankies. Um, on the right, there isn't really too many of those people. Most of those people did understand, like vast majority of people on the right did understand like why they should support Ukraine and what they should be doing about it. But there was very few, shall we say, tanky quite equivalents, and they were very much beaten almost into silence in many ways. Or if those who were there, they weren't really open and vocal on this. However, given, of course, now Donald Trump's stance, especially here in the UK, it puts people like Nigel Farage in a bit of a tricky position because he has openly advocated that, you know, has said very some of the same stuff that Donald Trump has been saying about Ukraine in the past, but then also has now advocated, how much we should go towards, Donald Trump and stuff like that. And you'll notice Farage has been very quiet over this Ukraine stuff and hasn't been making very too many comments. But now there are a lot of right wingers realizing that actually this savior who they had once envisioned and once pictured would bring the glorious comeback of their conservative party isn't fulfilling that. In fact, we're gonna actually go over to the Daily Mail of all places to see this because this is just so bizarre, so strange that it is worth covering. But you are seeing a lot of right wingers realizing um, Donald Trump isn't that good. And bear in mind, we're only just starting. We are only just starting on this. So let's go on into this and have a look what's going on here because oh boy, this is it's not leopard eating faces territory. Because obviously, the guy who wrote this is from the UK, but it is certainly a moment of I think of Schadenfreude because I can guarantee you this guy was very supportive of Donald Trump during the US presidential election and was singing his praises, if not all that, short while ago. And then this week has certainly, at least from what I've seen, made a lot of right wingers do a massive about face, not only on Donald Trump, but you are seeing some starting to rethink their position on Europe. And that is very interesting indeed. So, before we do get on into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. Down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one of Nation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club down below. So, let's crack on then into this. Oh, and you can also help support the channel by clicking the like and share button as well. So, this is coming from the Daily Mail. I know, oof, but hey, I wouldn't go to it if it wasn't interesting. So the title is Donald Trump is betraying Ukraine, and this is where it piqued my interest, and killing the Brexit dream. His British cheerleaders need to be careful what they wish for. Oh, that is very interesting indeed. This is a bit of a oh, oh, indeed. So here we go. Not so much the art of the deal as the art of betrayal. Last week, Donald Trump's newly appointed Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, landed in Europe to deliver a message from his boss, saying, I am here today to directly and unambiguously express the stark strategic realities relevant to the United States of America from being primarily focused on the security of Europe. And a couple of days later, Trump's vice president, J.D. Vance, then arrived in Munich to ram that message home, saying the threat that I worry about most vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, and it's not any other external actor, he said. What I worry about is the threat from within, a retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values. And for a brief moment, some people thought it might just be bombast, typical Trumpian rhetoric aimed at the MAGA base back home. I will say this now, that speech from Vance absolutely was shot basically back at the MAGA audience back home. Absolutely, that was the case. But what was said in that speech was also delivered to the people in the room. It wasn't just, at the, you know, um, at the MAGA audience. It was for the people in the room, and they were shocked by it. And what the implications of both those speeches would be, and we've talked about that, and we've done videos about them. Talked about it on Geoscope as well. It went down very, very badly, to the point where you had the defense minister go off his speech and had to rebuke Vance almost immediately on that. Anyway, then the president announced he was then opening talks in Saudi Arabia to end the war in Ukraine. The Russians would be at the table, he revealed. Ukraine, the EU, and the UK would not. And there was no point of Vladimir Zelensky complaining about it, saying, "You should have never have started the war," he chided. That is straight up parroting of Russian propaganda, that Ukraine somehow started this war and is responsible for this war. It's not at all. This now sudden lurch into isolationism, and in the case of Ukraine, is now overt 1930s style appeasement, and was condemned across the political spectrum, or most of the political spectrum. And then this is where it starts to get quite interesting now, because now he's going to go after, like I say, a lot of these people who are big cheerleaders of him, and of course, what this means for their potential precious Brexit. Because remember, all the Brexiteers kept on continuously saying, "Don't worry, we're going to get this absolutely amazing sweetheart deal from America that is going to make staying in the single market and customs union look absolutely ridiculous." Well, that deal still has not materialized on that, and I don't think people would be very happy knowing the full details of what was in that. That's for sure. But among some now of the most prominent figures on the right, in particular, of course, the Brexit supporting right, Trump's Neville Chamberlain pivot, and even the populist narrative around free speech and liberty that attempted now to camouflage it, found voices of support. So now here we've got the Daily Mail. Just bear in mind what is happening and what you're about to see. You've got the Daily Mail calling out people who are supporting Trump and who are big Brexit supporters. It feels like we're looking at a parallel universe where we are seeing this. But this is just the kind of literal table flip that has been initiated by Donald Trump because of these comments, because of this position on Ukraine. So let's go into some of this then. So, Frosty was first, saying Boris Johnson's chief Brexit negotiator. Cooed, saying, "Thank you, JD Vance, for telling it like it is. It's about free speech in Europe and this country." Suella Braverman then also announced, "Never has a greater truth been spoken. Free speech is in crisis at home and across Europe. We are being led down the abyss of left-wing oppression and mob rule." Even Boris Johnson, the most vocal and ardent international supporter for Ukraine's fight for freedom, began then to scramble around trying to legitimize Trump's abandonment now of the lines of Kiev, saying Trump is not betraying Ukraine, he insisted. Well, it sure seems like it. Well, he self-evidently is, and his British cheerleaders, especially now his Brexit supporting cheerleaders, should be very careful what they wish for. Because if Donald Trump carries on like this, it could very well drive the final nail into their Brexit dream. Bear in mind that this is being said. I want to remind you what this quote was, where we've just read this from. This is from the Daily Mail, of all places, saying that the evidence is clear. Support for Brexit is slowly collapsing. Major YouGov polls conducted just last month found that 55% of those questioned believed it was wrong to leave the EU, with just 30% continuing to support British withdrawal. Only 11% of those currently surveyed viewed Brexit as more of a success than a failure. There are many very real, many reasons now for this disillusionment. One of the most significant was the graphic highlighted by JD Vance in his speech with Vice President gave Brexit, of course, a brief name check. He then lambasted what he called European elites for ignoring the will of the people and abandoning the continent to the tidal wave of immigration. Again, blaming immigration for all of Europe's problems. That's again just not the case. Look at Spain. Spain has been one of the very few countries to go really down this anti immigration path. Look at its GDP; it's booming because it is accepting these immigrants. It is doing incredibly well, just as any other country would. And of course, its politicians are talking very positively about the effects of immigration, even those on the right. Now, not all of them, true, but they are talking very positively about the effects of immigration and how good it can be for their economy. Imagine all of a second if you were to get people like, as we saw there, Boris Johnson, Suella Braverman, or even Frost suddenly doing a complete 180 and saying, "Oh my God, look how amazing this immigration actually is! It's really good for our economy. It's really good growth booster." And of course, one of the things that Spain has done, a lot of that boost and the growth that they've had, they've put into infrastructure. This is what the Conservatives should have been doing for years, but they refused to do it because they would not build infrastructure. They would not get around to building it properly. It was just. But anyway, we're going off tangent now. But you can just see how crazy it is that we are seeing this type of point now being pushed into into the Daily Mail, saying, yeah, they've got to be really careful. Brexit, this could be the final nail in their Brexit dream. Support for Brexit is collapsing. That is a very, very open admission from somewhere like the Daily Mail. Open support that Brexit is collapsing. Yeah. Like I say, we live in strange times indeed. Anyway, remember, of course, what the key selling point of Brexit was. That we should take back control of our borders and bring net migration down to the tens of thousands. Yet Frost and Solar Braverman and the rest of their colleagues, who were all gushing over Munich, mashing now of the political status quo, still do not get it. They generally cannot see in the eyes of voters, not least the Brexit supporting voters, that they are part of that treacherous elite. They're the ones who gave the pledges of what Brexit would deliver. They are the ones charged of implementing it, and they were the ones who failed. Now that is even more shocking, that you've got a Daily Mail columnist, Dan Hodges, turning around and saying, "You are the elites in this. You failed on Brexit. You made all these promises and you did not deliver on them. You are the ones who failed." That is a first, as far as I'm aware. Look, of course, at another one of Brexit's great selling points. We were told that if we voted for leave, that would actually, of course, enhance our security. The freedom of now the crying yoke of the cloying yoke of the European Union. That we would no longer need to worry about our armed forces being subsumed into an EU army. Britain would stand tall against our leading ally, the United States. Yeah. Look how well that argument has now gone. Like, look how well that has gone. That entire defensive. It was ridiculous to begin with, and the leave camp and unofficial leave camp went to some big extremes about the whole EU army stuff. But that whole argument has collapsed now, and we are looking at, actually, an EU army wouldn't actually be, it's yeah. I keep on saying it, table flip moment on this. Anyway, the now grand cross-Atlantic alliance that has saved us from the tyranny of Nazism would again, of course, ensure our freedom. But where are we today? We are facing no option but to turn our old allies on the continent into an establishing a new security infrastructure as Uncle Sam now walks away to embark on a new military adventure targeting Mexican drug cartels, securing the Panama Canal, and militarizing Greenland. And then there was that other great Brexit promise, a US trade deal, the one we exited the European Union for. The world would become our trading oyster, we were told, and the United States, with its voluptuous, heaving markets, would be the pearl. Again, never really going to happen because of the realities of what that deal would probably include, especially under a Trump-led White House, especially what we've heard very recently about those particular talks. Anyway, but what's the reality? It is now a US president who has opted to turn his back on free trade, embrace protectionism, and declare a trade war with the UK, saying, "We are first in line to do a great free trade deal with the United States," Boris announced after meeting Donald Trump on his advance of his inauguration way back in 2017. What we are actually first in line for is a 25% tariff now on British steel that the US will impose next month. The Brexiteers' decision to now lash themselves solely for reasons of narrow partisan ideology to Donald Trump is political insanity. The evidence is clear that while they have been now seduced by his Brooklyn braggadocio, the British people have not. Yesterday, another YouGov poll put voters' attitudes towards Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin and the president was published. And of those questions, 64% had now a favorable view of Zelensky, while 16% were unfavorable. Putin was at 4% favorable, with 89% now unfavorable. Trump's figures were, of course, 22% favorable and 73% unfavorable. This is not populism, but political nihilism. Trump and Putin are toxic, and yet leading Brexiteers are now opting to grab onto them and hug them tight. Actually, not grab them so much as now prostrate themselves in front of them. Again, we were told that Brexit would deliver. What would Brexit deliver? Sovereignty, the removal of power from the hands of Westminster elite and its placement to where it belongs in the hands of the electorate. And again, what is the reality? The spectacle now of our senior politicians turning their backs on the British people to bow down and scrape and genuflect at the feet of now the President of the United States. Brexit is dying, and unless the Brexiteers wake up, the coup de grace will be delivered by their hero, Donald Trump. And yeah, we've said this before. We've said this before. I cannot believe I am reading this in the Daily Mail of all places. Donald Trump is the final nail in this coffin. All it's going to take, really, is either these steel tariffs or some other form of tariffs, and that's it. What are the Brexiteers going to say about this? What are they going to do? And it's the same as I've been saying for a while now. Not only when you look at sort of figures, conservative figures really sort of grappling and holding on to Trump for dear life, but also praising figures like Javier Milei, who massively, if you really looked at what was going on in Argentina, or you merely just scratched the surface, you would find a ton of valid arguments just to whip back at them. Not least, of course, him holding his bizarre seances where he contacts his dead dog to seek economic advice. I'm still shocked no one has actually brought that up in Parliament to Kimi Badenoch or any of these conservatives who somehow praise Javier Milei. Yeah, that's the case. It's so bizarre. But you're also seeing the exact same thing happen with Doge and of course Elon Musk, them praising what's going on there, saying, "Oh, we need our own version of Doge." Well, I keep on saying it. Eventually, sooner or later, Doge and Musk are going to screw up so catastrophically. You are going to see people retreat from that position, or not even said they once held that position, which will also be quite funny because they've They've really a lot of the right wingers have really written a lot about how amazing and great Doge is. Um, yeah, and eventually when that blows up in the face, that'll be seeing a funny reversal of, "Oh, we never praised Doge at all, but you wrote this." They're like, "Well," um, so yeah, this is kind of surreal. This is kind of bizarre to see that you would have this type of article openly saying, "Yeah, Brexit's dead. Donald Trump's about to kill it. He's about to kill the Brexit dream." And it's just like, um, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting, but hmm. Anyway, let me know what you think down below as well. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, click the like, click the share button. Down below, there's the Patreon page. There's the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So as always, we'll see you all next time.